It's a valid question, right? I mean, how do we go forward from here? History does its thing, but still, the year 2020 has changed us. Babe Ruth had the most home runs, but also the most strikeouts. Is this the year of the great Bambino's swing and a miss? I know I've felt it. I'm not the same person I was 9 months ago. And not all for the better. I wonder if those clementines are going to last another week. Vitamin C is important, but not as important as vitamin D in the winter. But multivitamins don't really absorb that well. I should clean the windows later. Developmental expectations have been upended. Political realities have broken down and partially reformed. Social equivalencies have come up way short. Records are cool. I should put a record on. Maybe I should do some exercises. Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta sweating and gyrating is going to be the motivation for this week. I can do it. I can do it.
How now?
How now?
How now?
How now?
How now?
How now?
This is how now.
How now? I gotta tell you, the 35 millimeter collage stuff that you're doing is super cool.
Thank you. I have a pretty amazing collection of 35 millimeter slides. My grandfather was a photographer, so most of those images he took. I also somehow got the entire Texas fashion collection 35 millimeter slide collection. It's like thousands of slides, and I just got lucky. I was leaving class and someone was throwing them in the trash, and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, is everything okay? And they were like, no, we've digitized them. And I was like, okay, great. Can I take them? And I started taking them out of the trash. And then she was like, well, I'll bring you the whole collection. And then that was that.
That's so cool. See, and like that was the other like really cool thing that I saw on your website. That was the the found pieces of whatever on the like the roadside. The way that you photographed where you found them and then like placed them in this like incredibly sterile environment, but not like cleaning them at all. I thought that was really cool as well.
It's funny. I'm glad you brought up that work because I'm kind of doing the same thing now with plastics.
Yeah.
I'm kind of collecting them and I'm not altering them in any way. And that's basically been like a very similar technique in thinking about these found objects.
Yeah, and I think that is a common theme through a lot of your work. How the things that are just a part of the environment can actually be kind of like personified in different types of ways, like the stuff that you did in Spokane with the air quality control. I thought that was also like similar to that vein. The thing that you did in Denton with which I thought was amazing, was the like slide or like presentation to the forest that was being demolished.
Yeah, well, I always hope that there is some kind of form or like underlying humor within it, because I mean, a lot of the things that I think about are accessibility and digestibility of information. These are two reoccurring things within my work. And I think the digestibility aspect really heavily lays on whether or not something you can be told something without hitting that peak of like going into deer in the headline, your fight or flight.
Yeah.
Like, can we sustain a conversation? And it can be heavy conversations, but how can we sustain them in the way where we can actually get somewhere instead of being caught up on all these like specific statements that are overwhelming and then we shut down, right? And I also think that like another thing that occurs a lot, or that I really think of a lot, is play. Like whether or not something's bringing you joy. Part of me wonders if I'm intentionally being humorous, because I mean a lot of my work comes through like spontaneity and like just arriving at places and rolling with it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if a lot of it ends up being humorous because I'm being playful, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I think both exist within my work, but there's definitely like I'm interested in seeing things differently. And maybe it's because I see things differently and I'm inherently curious. But I think that curiosity can really lend itself to playfulness. And I feel like they feed off of each other. And if we could figure out that interaction, that tango a little bit better, we might come to, I don't know, bright, significant realizations about how the world is or could be.
When you're creating that space, for yourself to have that playful experience, you don't sit down and say, I really think that, plastics is the thing, or is it just like you're walking down the street kind of humming a song or doing something, and it just kind of momentary, that is interesting, and I'm going to see if I can figure something out. How does it occur to just pick up small bits of plastic? What was the first thing that happened that way?
Well, the running joke is, so I went to Portugal with a good friend and mentor of mine, Alicia Eggert, and we were there for 5 months, and it took me 3 months to find friends, and that's where the plastic comes in. Like on the beach, there's just so much plastic, and it's different when you're, going through getting to know a place, but also being insufficient because you don't speak Portuguese very well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time of like observing and being in the environment, and like the amount of plastic that was riddled at this specific spot of Matosinhos Beach in Porto was disorganized and just placing them every which way. I mean, that's a real representation of what it looked like in the sand. Like imagine the white wall as being the sand.
Yeah.
It was very much like that. Just every centimeter there was another piece, and you could dig a little bit further and there was another piece. And then I did a lot of traveling after that. And everywhere I went, I started to notice it, on sidewalks, in parks, downtown centers. No place is not touched by plastics, exiting my home, coming into the art building, plastic everywhere.
The word insufficient, in relation to being able to communicate with other people. And then how that basically translated into, communicating deeply with your environment, especially with going through a period of isolation, like everyone is again, being able to, have those adaptive qualities through imagination, creating space where there is no space.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because without me even acknowledging that was a big part of my experience in Portugal too. I didn't have studio space. In fact, I was living in really tiny quarters as well. And it was like, what are your materials going to be? I think at some point that was a consideration too, of like limitations of space, limitations of resources. You can kind of respond to your environment in those ways and find those answers. I think it's interesting too, because like improvisation is like it's also something that I think about a lot, because within my own practice, no matter which mode I'm working with, there's something to be learned as well as expressed. Like that is like a mutual exchange. And I think that leaving that room for improvisation within the work, you know, having an idea, but how many times do ideas actually come to fruition completely exactly how you imagined it?
Right.
And I think taking on those challenges can, lead your work in a completely different direction. But that's also a human element of like how we process, respond to our surroundings, what we're trying to accomplish, you know, the environment. I think that's like a really significant part of this practice is it's a point of investigation, you know, trying to understand this exchange of maybe expressing, communicating something, but also responding.
What was the best idea that you like had to like let go?
Oh, yeah, I've had those. Actually, when I was doing this residency in Spokane, Washington, part of the project was a socially engaged component of the work. So the gallery took on the form of this air quality monitor that indicated the air quality, which was important because they were going through fire season, right?
Yeah.
Because it can actually indicate healthy to potentially harmful amounts of particulate matter in this case because of the wildfires. But the other half of that project was me going out into the community, talking to construction workers, talking to the baristas, talking to people waiting for the bus stop, you know, just seeking out this exchange of conversation. But part of the project was the documentation of that. And so I kept trying to get at, okay, what's the best way to document this? Video, audio. Video became really complex because you know how people get on cameras. And so then I was like, okay, just the audio element, bare bones. They're not even going to know it's there. They know it's there. And I swear, every time I turned off that recorder and put it in my bag, it's like the real juice came out. It's like, okay, I had to give up the idea that I had to produce this documentation. Actually trying to become more aware of how we play a role in fire season, you know, even stories of people's homes being impacted by it. People having to leave their homes, people losing their homes. Those stories didn't come out in the documentation of it. So what ultimately had to happen is I had to give up the proof and just like resort to engaging with people in a really authentic, genuine way where we could have the conversation, but it could never be a project, not a project that I could formulate and control. This question of how much are you expecting and how much are you giving, right? Like this exchange between like the artist and the observer, especially in the realm of interactive work or even socially engaged work, which I'm definitely interested in. I think because of that project specifically, I think now, who am I doing this for? You know, why am I doing it? Who's benefiting from it?
Yeah.
If all those answers are me, then like we should recalculate.
When you're able to like share that and create space for another person, you know, to be able to think about what their voice actually means to them.
I originally got into art while my community at the time, Denton, Texas, was trying to ban fracking and was successful in banning fracking. But during this time, a group called Puppets for the Planet formed, and we used satirical performance and puppetry to talk about the issues that our community was facing. So this was like my first full nosedive into art. And to see how well it worked, like these interpersonal conversations that we were having with each other, even the laughter. I mean, we were using old cabaret songs and changing the lyrics to, you know, be about the oil and gas industry in Denton. And it was really playful and I think engaged such a wide audience. I mean, as you can imagine, like Mr. Rogers maybe was a kid's show, but I guarantee you those parents of those children were highly affected by it as well. It was not only my first full commitment to artistic practice, it was also my first realization that art really can be used as a tool for communication and to invoke change. And it can be done successfully, and it can
Yeah.
be done grassroots, and it can be done with organizers and the best intentions for your community at heart.
Subscribe!